excited about the webinar that we have for you today. I'm Chris Gregoire, Challenge Seattle CEO, co-chair of the Cascadia Innovation Corridor with Greg Davenon of British Columbia Business Council, and just an absolute delight to work with. And while COVID has been a challenge for our annual conference and so on with Cascadia, nonetheless, we've filled that void with webinars that have been overwhelmingly successful, and we've got another one planned for you today. This is our seventh a virtual forum, this one hosted by our Transformative Technology Subcommittee. So a big thank you to our co-chairs. We've had a leadership change, and these two co-chairs have come in just like dynamos and taken over and really accelerated the pace of the work of the committee. Pam Saunders, who's the Public Relations and Social Impact Lead at Microsoft Vancouver, and Molly Jones, Vice President, Government Affairs of the Washington Technology Institute. For those who are not familiar with Cascadia, it is an initiative. We've been recognized as a mega region, one of 11 in North America. Mega regions, generally speaking, are all about economics. This one, however, we have decided is about a whole lot more because of who and what we are. So while fundamental to our Cascadia Innovation Corridor is expanding our economy, it's also about doing good. In other words, if we collaborate, if we come together, if we unite, there's probably not a whole lot with the innovation technology driven idea that we have that we can't accomplish and that we can share with the world. So among the many things, how can we cure cancer? How can we become the first sustainable mega region in the world? Those are kind of some of the things that we think we can do by working together. The CIC is really built, yes, on an economic foundation, but also shared values, shared culture, throughout our mega region. As I often share with Greg, when I served in office as governor of the state of Washington, I found that we had more in common with British Columbia than we did any state in the US. And that included not just values and culture, but also our sense of humor. And I'm not sure what that says about us, quite frankly, but we share very, very much. Cascadia has long been home to some of the most innovative technology companies and entrepreneurs in the world. And as our new technologies are emerging, that continues to be the case. We find globally a reputation where people come for work, companies come, tourists come to see kind of the foundation of this technology innovation hub that we have here. So today, we are known as a global leader in groundbreaking technologies like blockchain, quantum, AR, VR, but we continue to grow and continue to innovate. And in many instances, this cross-border partnership is really exemplifying the benefits and the opportunities that have been created by the Cascadia Innovation Corridor. So this morning, we're going to hear from some of the experts in these fields, talking about how collaboration within the corridor is really driving innovation and how those tools can be used across all kinds of sectors and issues and problems in Cascadia, not only to benefit us economically, but to benefit, as I said earlier, doing good things. So I want to thank you again, all of you, for joining with the seventh of our webinars. And I want to turn it over to Pam now, who's going to talk with you a little bit about the work of our subcommittee that is sponsoring the event today. Pam?
Thank you, Governor Gregoire. Good morning, everybody. I am co-chair of the Transformative Technology Committee, and I have the honor of providing an update on the work that we've been doing and introducing each of our speakers for today's session. As this is our first webinar, I wanted to start just by calling out my fellow committee members while the camera gets sorted out. As Governor Gregoire mentioned, there's myself from Microsoft and Molly Jones, the VP of Government Affairs of the Washington Technology Industry Association. The committee also includes Ray Walia, CEO of Launch Ventures, Olivia Norton, co-founder and CTO for Sanctuary AI, RAU, Managing Director of the Cascadia Blockchain Council, Joseph Williams, Seattle Director for the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, Landon Downs, co-founder and president of OneQubit, and Hannah Dubrava, Director of Corporate Affairs at Microsoft. The last year has been both a challenge and an opportunity as companies across the region reckoned with digital transformation. What would have taken years, we achieved in months. As a committee, we focused on providing support, we made connections, we collaborated, we leveraged experts within our network to drive conversations about the applications of technology in everything from sustainable agriculture to post-pandemic border operations. In almost every case, we advanced awareness for regional strengths in blockchain, quantum, and augmented reality. Today's session will include a series of lightning talks from 3 leaders innovating within these sectors, followed by a shared panel discussion on Cascadia as a globally competitive innovation superregion. With that, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker, Mickey Maher, SVP of Flow Partnerships at Dapper Labs. Mickey previously held leadership positions at Unity, Upsite, and Amplifier. While at Unity, he built mobile app business from pre-launch to nearly 300 million in revenue. Prior to that, he worked in payments, including as Director of Business Development for American Express. Mickey, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Let's see if I can figure out how to present on Teams.
There should be an arrow button just up, maybe across the top by the leave button.
An arrow by the leave button.
At least on.
I might not be able.
On the Mac, it's on the bottom and it says open the share tray.
Oh, is that's okay?
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, can you see it, the presentation?
Not
Nope.
yet.
Okay. Okay. I figured it out. Thought I figured it out, so sorry.
We can see that now. Yes.
Okay.
We can see the full platform there.
Can you see the deck?
We can see it perfectly now.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Sorry about that. Okay, Mickey Maher, SVP of Dapper Labs, here to talk about non-fungible tokens. You might know non-fungible tokens more by the moniker. Okay. Oh, there it is. You might know it more by the moniker NFT. So what is an NFT exactly? How would we describe an NFT? An NFT is a token with unique properties, making it different from all the other tokens of its type. with those properties. These unique properties are often associated with value of the token. So an NFT is essentially the exact opposite of a fungible token. A fungible token is fungible. They can be exchanged. You think dollar bills, you think coins can be exchanged with each other. They have the same value. There's nothing unique or different that is associated with value. NFTs have some properties that are unique to them that is associated with value and make them different from another one of its type. So who created NFTs? Well, actually, we did at Dapper Labs. We actually invented the ERC 721 standard on Ethereum in 2017, and we actually created the moniker NFT as just a reaction or an opposite of a fungible token. So we coined that term at Dapper Labs. And we created the NFT to create something called CryptoKitties. And CryptoKitties is the first NFT blockchain application using smart contracts and using Ethereum. So essentially what CryptoKitties was it's a kitty app with unique kitty artwork with tokens associated with them, which were NFTs. Those tokens or NFTs had 13 unique properties that made them different. And then there was a gaming mechanic called breeding. And you'd breed the cats together, and those 13 properties would mix with each other and pop up a unique cat based on those 13 properties of each cat that was mixing in the breeding. So some stats here, CryptoKitties has done 30 million in market transaction volume. Over 100 kitties have sold for more than $10,000 US. The record kitty has sold for $140,000 in a Christie's art auction. We took our learnings from CryptoKitties and made NBA Top Shot. It's the first mainstream crypto or NFT app. NBA Top Shot's a collaboration with NBA and its Players Association to memorialize the greatest moments in basketball history as digital collectibles, or NFTs. Fans can collect these Top Shot NFTs from limited edition drops, daily challenges, and can trade with one another on a global peer-to-peer marketplace. So essentially, NBA Top Shot is we pioneered video NFTs capturing in-season moments. We sell them as 3D assets that are secured to a blockchain. So what has this done? It's become a global phenomenon. It's done 600 million in marketplace volume since January. We do pack drops. You can open a pack to receive your NFTs, and over 250,000 users, typically show up for these pack drops. And another data point here is we're the fastest growing marketplace in the history of anything. And why is this happening now? Dapper Labs, a Vancouver-based company, built a blockchain as a innovation of the Ethereum blockchain called Flow. And Flow is the first and only blockchain built with an NFT experience in mind from the ground up. So the NBA Top Shot success is not an accident. It's convergence of factors of there being a platform that supports it, a global IP on top of it, the NBA, and the team that invented NFTs and is the most experienced at building these types of apps have all come together and built this amazing business. NFTs or blockchains are unique and different than anything that's ever existed because they enable true ownership, seamless peer-to-peer marketplace trading, verifiable provenance, and an open world concept. NFTs are compared to digital items or in-app items a lot. We like to think that NFTs are more analogous to physical goods than they are to digital goods. In fact, the only thing the NFT has in common with a digital good is the sheer fact that they are digital. True ownership, scarcity, and the enduring nature of NFTs are more closely related to physical goods. So what do NFTs do for brands, IP holders, or corporations, or even individuals that want to get into the space? Well, it unlocks new revenue streams for rights holders. So it's a digital merchandising revenue stream that had never existed previously, as well as a revenue stream where IP holders or brands can capture downstream revenue on any secondary market transaction that ever happens through their merchandise. So if you could think of an artist with a painting, if it's a digital art on the blockchain, every time it's sold, every time it appreciates and it's sold for that new value, that artist can capture, a certain percentage of that secondary marketplace transaction forever, built into the smart contract. This also gives new opportunities and access to fans. So fans can reach their heroes directly through the blockchain, or the brands directly through the blockchain. NFTs can be used as keys or tokens that can unlock exclusive content, either in the physical or digital world, access to their favorite brand, celebrity, talent, influencer, etc. NFTs can also be merged together, mutated, so they can to unlock exclusive NFTs or exclusive content. And this can give fans or passionate fans of a brand actual IP ownership of the brand. So if you think about a new music album that's released, maybe Taylor Swift wants to create fractionalize her album rights into 300,000 NFT tokens and sell those off. And then those tokens can be associated with the success of her album, both in a cash flow basis and an appreciation basis. So if you own 1,000th of the Taylor Swift album, you'd be able to participate in her upside and actually earn off of her success of her album. And that can be done in an NFT. Oops. What many people don't know today about NFTs and what we're really passionate about here at Dapper Labs is the utility of it. So in the traditional physical world, utility is really hard to create for collectibles. In the blockchain world, it's built into the technology, and it allows third parties to come in and build apps on top of the core experience to create these utility experiences, whether it's games, analytics platforms, social platforms. Uses of NFTs in creative ways can be built into the blockchain and scaled across tens of millions of users. So not only are these collectibles or things you can own, these are things you can use in a digital experience. And that leads us to where NFTs come into what we call it open worlds, or people call the metaverse. So the blockchain and NFT smart contracts allow a concept of these core experience being used as permissionless building blocks to build more experiences on top of. And NFTs are just a core function of that. But what an NFT or smart contract blockchain allows is the acceleration of software development, where everything that was built previously can be leveraged to build new experiences, thus creating what many would call a metaverse, what we call an open world. Okay, that is all for NFTs in my presentation. I appreciate the time, and thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mickey. Mickey will return later on to join Ray for the panel and talk a little bit more about blockchain and the leadership that the Cascadia region is showing around the world. Let me now welcome Dr. Stephanie Simons to our virtual stage. Stephanie is an assistant professor, Canada Research Chair, and CFAR Fellow based out of the Department of Physics at Simon Fraser University, as well as the founder and chief quantum officer of Photonic Inc. Her work on silicon quantum technologies was awarded a Physics World Top 10 Breakthrough of the Year for 2013 and again in 2015, and she's one of only 5 individuals to have ever won this award twice. She was named one of Canada's top 40 under 40 for 2020, and her work has been covered by the New York Times, CBC, BBC, Scientific American, The New Scientist, and many more. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, thank you. And thank you very much for the invitation to talk to you about quantum. So I'm not sure if everybody realizes what's happening in this region around quantum technology. And it's entirely plausible that not many people know about what quantum technology can offer because it hasn't really gone mainstream yet. It's coming. And one of the things that I get to do in addition to building these things is engage with people to lay out what the future is going to look like. Because in a sense, this is the next stage in technological development in the way that human technological development is quite heavily weighted towards the commercialization of various branches of physics over the years, right? So like refrigeration, that was originally physics, like thermodynamics, right? Everything that we hear about in terms of computation and communication and the rest is truly the knock-on effects of commercializing semiconductor physics. And of course, you could speak to all the ones over the past couple hundred years. So quantum is the next. It is very well understood, and yet we haven't built something that's crossed the threshold into the mainstream yet. But even with that in mind, we already know a few of the things that quantum technologies are going to be able to do. And a lot of the work that is being done right now as urgently as possible to bring these tools online, a lot of that work, a disproportionate amount of that work is happening in this Cascadia region. So I'm happy to be able to give the opportunity to lay out, what's happening a little bit just for your own reference. But I'm going to open with maybe a start about where it's going to go in maybe, let's say, 10, 20, 30 years. Like what is that going to look like as a rough structure of what we know now? Now, having said that, I'm just going to preface this, right? When people started, when cars were first built and people understood the physics of combustion and the rest of that, people didn't really have in their minds jet airplanes, right? Like, so there's a lot that it'll go and expand into, and we are very much limited by our lack of imagination. Let's say we're going to really see this blossom into its own sector, but for now we're quite strongly anchored in the sorts of things that we already know are pain points that quantum technologies can offer. And why are any of these things possible? It's possible by virtue of the fact that information is ultimately physical, right? We think about all of these digital manifestations and these abstractions that serve us very well, but ultimately it comes down to ones and zeros that are represented by physical things like bits, zeros and ones that are held in as magnetic moments essentially in your chips, in the semiconductor chips that you have. So information is physical, and if we were to be clever about it, we should be taking a look at all the physical laws that are available to us and use the ones that are most favorable for the kinds of information processing tasks and communication tasks that we would like to do. So here's a bunch, and I'm going to just jump through. These are actually seen as the near-term ones, in that, of course, these longer-term ones we don't really know how to do. But what you can do I'll go through them each of them in turn, just to kind of lay the land of where this is going. So if you were to have arbitrary control over quantum information systems at scale, you could do a lot of things that you can't do with any other means, because the way that we process information right now, these digital zeros and ones, are fundamentally less powerful than the kinds of quantum zeros and ones that you can put together. So some of the laws that are in effect in quantum systems are such as the law of superposition, which means you can be 0 and 1 at the same time, or the law of entanglement, which very roughly speaking indicates that adding one quantum bit to another, adding one quantum bit to a system doubles its information carrying capacity, right? So the Moore's law for quantum is like every qubit, every quantum bit you add doubles the information space. And so it's tremendously powerful, and what that gives you is an exponential growth in computational space that you can use. And if there's algorithms that have already been designed, even though we don't have these computers at scale, as it were, available right yet, we have a lot of proof of principle systems and small scale systems. But the large scale systems will enable things that just can't be done any other way. One of them is material simulation and chemistry simulations, quantum chemistry. And the easiest way to map that is to think, well, okay, quantum systems, chemicals themselves are quantum systems. And so even just to simulate those things accurately is well beyond the scope of classical computers, because it's just the complexity grows exponentially. So you can't even simulate accurately caffeine right now, and nonetheless the genome, right? So if we wanted to go and actually scale that, you need the exponential resources to give you that kind of like for like simulation capabilities. And so material simulation, battery simulation, drug design, that kind of thing. You can also reframe a lot of optimization and logistics problems in terms of quantum algorithms. And both of these count as exponential speedups. And what that means is not just like an overhead. It's not as if, okay, you get 10,000 times faster or something like that. It means that it scales fundamentally differently, which means that you can access problems that can't be accessed any other way. So like true large scale simulations for logistics and optimization can be done efficiently, which you wouldn't even attempt using classical systems. The scaling would be that it would take longer than thousands of years to do the computation, whereas it could be made to within hours or less on quantum systems. Cryptography and teleportation is a big one, and maybe you should sit up and take notice. When quantum systems come online and at scale, all of our current encryption standards that we rely upon for secure communications, RSA, blockchain, financial markets, they all fall apart. So just as a heads up, we want to be thinking about how to prepare your businesses and your infrastructure for the post-quantum world. When this comes online, that will we will be able to, the quantum systems will be able to efficiently chew through those cryptography challenges, which right now rely upon the difficulty to compute something. On the other side is quantum systems do offer the ability to teleport quantum information. So that means you can now teleport information and not worry about eavesdroppers in the middle. So that's quite nice, as well as do what's called quantum key cryptography. And there's all sorts of things that offer provable physical security as opposed to computational. So I can get into all of this if you're ever curious. And then the last one is financial markets, all that modeling, Monte Carlo. Monte Carlo is a technique used across many, many different industries, but this is just what we know of so far, right? And as I said, we don't have a large scale system up and running yet. Where are we? The next graph here is going to be a whole pile of data points, and you don't need to look at any of them, but what I'm going to try and get across to you in this is the flurry of activity that's happening, all right? So where do we need to be and where are we? A number of quantum bits on the ground right now are in the 10s to 50s, and if you need something to do large scale challenges like we were talking about on the previous one, you want to be hitting the thousands to millions of quantum bits. So that's where we are. And so this is what this graph looks like, right? So not to take any of these data points specifically, but just to take the general trend of there's a lot of action happening. And some of that action is based right here in Cascadia. D-Wave is responsible for some of these, and I can get into the flavor of their qubits for a bit. Microsoft has been pushing quite a bit. I'll talk about the ecosystem on the next slide, just to say that things are moving fast because people are quite motivated to bring online these tools. And so it is worth thinking about the prospect that this is coming sooner than people realize. What I'll say is that for context here, what is 100 quantum bits? Well, maybe 300 is a better number. If you had 300 quantum bits, it would take more bits, classical bits, than there are atoms in the universe to encode it, right? So 300 quantum bits has more information in it than would be the case if every single atom on the universe was a 0 or 1 in a classical system. So we're talking about a really, really big scale of computational power that we are harnessing. We're getting close to harnessing that kind of scale and have views on going further. So where are we with Cascadia? There are a number of organizations. Academic, this is still very much halfway between academic and industry. It's going through a tipping point right now. So I would say that a lot of the work is still happening within academia. There's a lot of players in this region, and we actually have a lot of deep connections. So if I were to pick any two logos on the screen, I could probably draw a line between them and talk about a partnership or some kind of engagement, collaborative or otherwise that's happening. I will just flag two very dominant players here. I'm from Photonic. That's my company that I'm a part of, Chief Quantum Officer, and we're you won't hear much about us yet, but you'll hear a lot about us in due course. D-Wave right now is a very large player. One Qubit is also another large player, and until very recently, it could be said these are both Vancouver-based companies. That Vancouver had the highest concentration of quantum engineering talent in the whole world in one city. That's now there's no competition for that, but I think if you swallow up all of these individuals, we still have maybe a top 5 in the world chance, maybe more, maybe higher, maybe top 3. And that's largely due to the fact that Microsoft has really been amping up their game in terms of the software side, as well as the distributed effort on some of the hardware bits. But D-Wave has, again, a full stack on a different kind of quantum system, One Qubit, and all of these organizations, such as the Northwest Quantum Nexus and the Quantum Algorithms Institute, have deep links to each other and all across all of them. So it's a very vibrant ecosystem where we all talk to one another, because this is very much a rising tide lifts all boats situation. We all want this technology to come online. So this last slide is, again, meant to be kind of giving you a sense of scale rather than specific information. So don't look for the specific phrases on this thing, but it's to get a sense for what an ecosystem around a new branch of physics looks like. This is the value chain, okay? So there's lots of different opportunities for lots of different businesses everywhere along this value chain, and these are just representative figures that I've drawn from the internet. But what I'll note is that there's different colors here indicating how far they've spun out from academia. So there's a lot that's still within academic labs, and there's potential for commercialization all the way up the stack. And so where I see this in Cascadia, I see lots of vibrant connections where this is going to be probably a controlled technology for obvious reasons. And so having local value chains that are very well trained, I think is makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of opportunity. So with that, I'm going to thank you very much for your attention and turn it to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. She will also return for the panel at the end and talk a little bit more about quantum in Cascadia. Now to bring us some insight on the world of connected work is our third speaker, Andrew Krostowski, Chairman and CEO at RealWare. Andrew is an executive and board leader with a deep understanding of technology, innovation, and complex systems. As a physicist, program manager, and officer in the USAF, he applied systems thinking to the full technology stack of command, control, communications, and intelligence systems in airborne and space-based platforms. At RealWare, he's driving the world's first voice-driven and fully ruggedized head-mounted computer, an inherently safe ATEX Zone 1 certified product for use in hazardous environments such as oil and gas production and chemical processing. RealWare's approach to augmented and assisted reality solutions is transforming how work is performed by addressing key challenges in workforce training, safety and productivity with IoT data visualization, remote mentoring, and workflow applications. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for allowing me to be part of this august panel. It's interesting for me as a participant, as a speaker. Let me go ahead and share my screen for a moment and see if I can get us all on that. Pamela, are you seeing my screen okay?
Yes, we can see it.
Great, fantastic. So first of all, assisted reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual reality, these are all terms that we know and throw around today, but they all go back, I think, to a fundamental thing that they connote the transfer of knowledge and information to a user in situ, where they can use that to work more safely, more productively, or even just collaborate and play in different ways than we have in the past. Cascadia has really become a global center for these technologies, with companies like Microsoft and their impressive HoloLens program, Facebook with Oculus, and of course RealWare, along with many other smaller component and software companies. But I think the important thing here is that this technology and these advantages are here today, and they're here now. RealWare is, in fact, the global leader of industrial wearable solutions and assisted reality for this modern industrial worker. We take great pride in that. RealWare is also, I think, a quintessential success story of a Silicon Valley startup that relocated to the Pacific Northwest to take advantage of the technical talent, the cost of living, and the more business-friendly environment we have here. For these reasons and more, I was very excited to see the company relocate to Vancouver, Washington, become part of this exciting growth technical region. We're based in Vancouver, Washington, but we have offices in Amsterdam, Dubai, Tokyo, Singapore, and Bangalore, with sales and support staff around the world to serve our global customers. And we've grown to over 120 dedicated employees around the world, and we continue to grow. Our customers and industry analysts have referred to us as the gold standard for industrial wearable assisted reality solutions. And our innovation and performance have been recognized widely, and our management team is recognized as leaders in our industry. RealWear exists because we believe that a connected worker is inherently more engaged with their work, with their customers, and with their distributed business teams. That connectivity empowers them to do more and to bring them new ways to access information, execute workflows with systems of record, and collaborate in real time to get the job done safely and with greater productivity. We believe all of this elevates their performance for their customers and enterprises, resulting in a better trained and more capable team members as our customers deliver new ways to exploit that data, analytics, and AI cloud systems, and maturing rapidly into this everything connected IoT world. For us, it's all about these devices that can create and access data to make better decisions at the edge. You know, the modern industrial worker operates in a world of great complexity and change. They need to be up to date for their information, do their work safely and properly. They need to have their hands free in order to get the tools and have access to do fine work. And they need to be able to collaborate in real time to solve problems, whether that is accessing documentation with blueprints, work instructions, or an expert half a world away. Sometimes this is hard to do in dangerous work where they work alone and sometimes with poor connectivity. And they need tools that can continue to add value in those circumstances, like what RealWear provides in the HMT1 and HMT1Z1. Current devices we found weren't really applicable to the industrial environments. You can certainly use a handheld device or a tablet. There are certainly very lightweight smart glasses, but all of these things have limitations when we talk about true on-the-edge industrial work. And RealWear designed our product to be able to handle and deploy these products in a huge and rapidly growing environment. We offer three basic products. One is this ruggedized IP66 wearable computer. The other is a HMT1Z1 for a Zone 1 intrinsically safe wearable, which, by the way, is the only one in the world that I know of that can do that. And Foresight Cloud, a tool that makes deploying and managing enterprise deployment safe, easy, and secure. For those who haven't seen this kind of device before, I've got a short video here that describes what's happening with it. So again, we've replaced that touch and gesture with hands-free voice commands, fully ruggedized, able to work in those environments. It's a powerful Android operating system. It's got a boom arm that allows for any eye relief and changes, allows it to be mounted in a number of different ways with a full shift battery. That means people can continue to do their work throughout a shift, and with speakers allow them to hear what they're doing and interacting with the device while they're seeing and sharing information with their camera and seeing things with their heads-up display. So it truly becomes a connected worker that allows them to take advantage of a very powerful tablet computer in a form factor that works in an industrial environment and is completely compatible with personal protective equipment. In terms of customers, just to get an idea of how widespread is this technology today, we serve 10 major vertical markets with global customers that you will all recognize. Each of them are recognizing a return on investment that's possible with the deployments of these connected workers and their software solutions. Calling off just a couple here would be, I'd miss others, but if I'm sure you'll pick out ones that mean something to you. In terms of our global footprint, we've now passed the 50,000 unit device threshold. We're seeing over 4,200 enterprise customers with over 200 supported applications that specifically support connected work on the edge. And today we support 15 languages. Assisted reality solutions are creating value in key industries like power and utilities, oil, gas, and chemical, manufacturing, construction and mining, transportation and logistics, automotive, aviation, food and beverage, retail, and of course IT and telecommunications are finding great usage. You only support that kind of diversity with great solutions. And RealWare has an impressive group of expanding app partners, and that's enabled by all of these great companies that exist inside of the Cascadia network and beyond. There are a number of case studies about how connected work can make a difference and how assisted reality can make a difference for industry that you can find on our website at realware.com and on our YouTube channel. But you'll see examples of being able to do certifying a plant completely remotely, where it would take hundreds of engineers on site, being able to do that through Microsoft Teams and remotely, as a Honeywell example, being able to troubleshoot equipment as they do with Mars, Shell using it to replace having to send technicians to locations to solve problems that can be done now remotely. Goodyear, again, being able to advance and accelerate their deployment of technologies to troubleshoot manufacturing, all during COVID without any risk to their employees, and driving that, as well as companies like Total, who have found being able to access global experts make a huge difference. And of course, in the automotive industry with Hirschman as well. I want to thank you for your time, and I understand why they call this certainly a lightning round at this point. But if you'd like to learn more, I hope you'll follow me on Twitter or connect with me on LinkedIn. We do talk about leadership, innovation, this technology, and of course, the future of work that's changing. And it's really a point now. We started off this conversation earlier about COVID. June is National Safety Month. So as we make sure to come out of COVID and start thinking about going back to work, safety becomes that paramount discussion. And we'll be talking a lot about that over the next few weeks at RealWare. So back to you, Pamela.
Thank you, Andrew, and for the great segue. One of the challenges of running a panel discussion on 3 different complex technologies is providing enough time for each speaker to dive a little bit deeper into their work. So I hope that these lightning talks have helped everyone understand these companies and the innovations that they're driving and the global awareness that they're creating for Cascadia. I'd now like to welcome our panel moderator, Ray Walia. Ray is a fellow member of the Transformative Tech Committee and a serial entrepreneur with over 20 years experience in both the entertainment and technology sectors. Ray is the founder of Launch Ventures, which owns and operates a network of private incubators, innovation labs, and investment funds. Ray was named Entrepreneur Mentor of the Year in 2014 and 2015, a Business in Vancouver Top 40 Under 40, G20 Young Entrepreneur, and a finalist for BC Tech Person of the Year in 2018. Ray is a tremendous contributor to the growth of the tech ecosystem in the region and has assisted countless entrepreneurs in the creation of sustainable and financeable businesses, including more than 35 international companies through the Launch Maple program. It's my pleasure to turn things over to Ray and invite our 3 speakers to return to the virtual stage.
Thanks, Pam. We get Steph, Mickey, and Andrew back up here. Steph, I know quantum can be very intimidating for a lot of people, and hats off to you. You really broke it down, and it was really easily to digest where the opportunities are. And Mickey, I'm really grateful for Top Shot. As a disgruntled Grizzlies and Sonics fan, it got me back into the game. Hopefully the Blazers are able to pull it out and get back into it. But Top Shot's just been a wild success story, and we've been following it closely here in Vancouver. And then Andrew, VR AR is always tied to entertainment, so it's so refreshing to finally see real world examples and seeing the future applications of this technology and how it's going to transform humanity, right? That's can be said for all 3 of these foundational technologies, or these frontier technologies. They're going to shape humanity moving forward, which kind of brings me to my first question. How are these technologies defining or shaping our region, specifically with blockchain, quantum, and VR AR? So maybe, Steph, we'll start with you. Quantum, how is it shaping and defining the Cascadia region?
I would say it hasn't yet. I mean, not anywhere close to where it's going, right? So one of the things about these kinds of sectors is it is absolutely the case that everybody is going to, in a short term, maybe overestimate what quantum will do, but in the long term, underestimate. This is what happens with any new branch of, as I said, commercialization of physics. Like the long term prospects of this are, it's going to feed into everything we do from a high performance computing sense, but also into a kind of more mundane sense too. Like I didn't even get to talk about how quantum sensors can outperform classical sensors. You know, like there's just so many things that you can do once we'll be able to harness and start teleporting information around via satellite. And I mean, like there's going to be a lot there in terms of authentication. You can't clone quantum data. So talk about having non-fungible options, right? So like there's a lot to come, but I wouldn't say that it's actually done. You haven't seen anything yet because we're only just kind of starting. We only are starting to see glimmers of where it's going.
And Andrew, to VR, AR, how are we seeing it define the region?
Well, I think, what you see is, first of all, there's just a lot of concentration of talent here. And so these are leaders who have really been able to deploy the technology. And I think we've gone from this idea of, playing with this particular technology and using it as an artifact to really, through this last COVID experience, finding out that everybody found a way that telepresence transformed their lives, allowed them to work more productively. And so this has now been an extension really of these technologies from the office to the front line where workers can use that being connected to work more safely, work more productively. And so that base of programmers, those solution sets, those hardware, all of that's growing up in this region and setting us apart, I think, to really make a disproportionate impact on the global stage industrially.
Awesome. And Mickey, kind of broadening it to blockchain, crypto, DeFi, DAOs, NFTs. There's so many things that are branching out of blockchain. How is that defining the region?
I think it's defining the world in some way, where we're still very early, but there's a lot of there's a lot of movement around the blockchain and becoming a world-changing technology. I mean, Bitcoin was only the start, and there's all kinds of other applications now that are being proven out for the blockchain. Now, how does it affect the region specifically? Well, I would say that the most notable, probably the most notable and the most successful company in the blockchain space is Dapper Labs. And Dapper Labs is built in, or is a Canadian company in Vancouver. So just in general, the company brings a lot of notoriety and attention to the region just by the sheer fact that we're doing so many innovative and world-changing things within the company.
And then for the audience that might not know, Dapper Labs, roughly about 4 years old, fastest growing marketplace of any product in the world, $7.5 billion valuation, offices all over the world now, I believe.
Well, yes and no.
Well, headcount all over the world.
Yeah, exactly.
The new realities of hybrid work environments and work from home. And it's not just basketball. It's not just crypto kitties. Flow has been reaching into a variety of different sectors, which is kind of taking me to my next question. Steph, you kind of hit on this. How are these sectors crossing over? Are we seeing cross-pollination of ideas, concepts, talent between blockchain and VR and quantum and blockchain, as you kind of alluded to earlier?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can speak to the connections that quantum has to all of these, or rather where I think people should be thinking. People need to prepare. This is the information security equivalent of pressing a big go button, right? We need to make sure we think about how to protect our information now, because all of cryptography is going to be rewritten. We have to think about how to make the most of the situation that we have, because we would like to be the leaders and the stewards of this technology rather than having to acquire it from somewhere else. and be having that forced upon us, right? So in terms of that's just from a cryptography standpoint, and that's just me trying to be my good citizen and make sure people are aware so they can start planning, because it's going to be soon. There's also all the opportunity, right? Like, this is a tool, so it has a lot of upside, and we just have to manage it. But thinking about, you know, combining with these various technologies, think about simulation, chemicals, think about Monte Carlo simulations for finance and the rest of it. I mean, like, it'd be hard for me to find a sector that this doesn't touch, and so the planning of that and figuring out when your organization in your sector will be able to make use of exponentially more computing power for whatever is troubling your sector. You know, getting a leg up on that and getting in front of that may be the difference between survival and not during that transition period. Right? It's going to be a very, very opportunistic, but also very, it's going to be a bit of an upheaval, let's say, when this comes online in full force.
Mickey, blockchain?
Yeah, people look at blockchain today and they think Bitcoin, and probably now think a little bit about NFTs. But what we think about blockchain and where we're going with blockchain is the smart contract concept. The smart contract concept unlocks a lot of things that previously didn't exist. It's programmatic agreements across a technology, right? So if you've got an asset, that asset can be protected digitally by a smart contract, and there can be revenue exchanges or terms around use of that asset, programmatic or programmed digitally into the smart contract. But I think the more interesting thing is the permissionless. I touched on this in my presentation, but it's the permissionless building blocks of technology that will accelerate software development. An example would be if you are a computer programmer, or you're technically savvy and you're looking at our product NBA Top Shot, and you're saying, wow, that's really interesting. I have a lot of ideas on how to expand on that. Well, conceivably, you can come in as a fan of that product, take the smart contracts that we built into that product, use those as a launch off point to build something around or on top of that product, whether it's a financial instrument, whether it's a social experience, whether it's a visualization of the Top Shots or NFT experience, or gaming or social app experiences, right? So when you think about how this levels and layers, you're just creating more. The more developers that are in that space, the more and more building blocks of software start to exist, and then the higher the launch off point for others to create products on top of that. So you could see how this grows exponentially very, very quickly.
Andrew, VR, AR?
Well, you know, I think what's interesting about this discussion really is what Steph is talking about is so fundamentally transformational in terms of computing power and the world that we've come to think about in an exponential sense. And what Mickey was just talking about really in terms of expanding the imagination, like what can we do with these technologies that currently exist, really, you know, not even putting aside the quantum advantages, but really how we exploit our current systems, changing the way we think about it. I think really in terms of AR, VR, and this assisted reality world, it's an extension of what we can do with this hybrid workplace. It's extending connected workplace to everyone. So, you know, as we go into this post-COVID world where everybody's hybrid, we know that there's going to be people in the office. There'll be people forever now, I think, who think about work differently in a distributed sense. It's transforming that. And so these tools in terms of assisted reality enable that right up to the edge, where all of the kinds of things you could incorporate. You can easily see a world where that incorporation includes quantum type solutions to problems that they're seeing on the edge, or specific contracts that have been written and worked through on these NFT kinds of devices that can be showing through it. So I think it's really just a more human part of the technology chain that says we're concerned with those last 6 inches of all of what's happening, which is that space between our ears. when we expect a human being to do something, act on something, or otherwise influence the environment. So I think that's the big change that's happening that we're leading here in Cascadia.
And so going back to, like, I guess, don't limit yourself to the region, but if you could, that'd be great. Can we get some examples outside of your own companies of where you're seeing this frontier technology being applied to their business practices? Like, for example, Nike out of Portland is now embracing non-fungible tokens and creating great experiences for sneakerheads and whatnot. Mickey, is there anything else outside of Dapper Labs that you're seeing, hey, that was really impressive, or I'd really love to see where this company could take this technology? Again, don't limit yourself to the region, but if you can, that'd be great.
It's hard because it's so new. So if I'm not limited to the region, it's going to be hard to find an example off the top of my head. I would say there's a very interesting one that it's tough to get your mind around, but I wanted to touch on this and then go into what I'm about to say. So the intersection of what Andrew is talking about and the intersection of what I'm doing is what one would think about as a Ready Player One world. So if you think there is a chance that there's this digital environment that people actually live in or spend a lot of time in, that's like a VR world, et cetera. That is what Andrew's doing as the visual, but you need an economy to be able to accomplish that. And the economy is powered by a smart contract blockchain and tokens. Now, that leads me into my point of what I'm thinking is interesting. And you said Nike, and Nike would be one that could accomplish this at great scale. But there's this digital fashion thing going on with NFTs in the blockchain. And I use this example. My son's 7 years old. And when I was in first, second, third, fourth grade, it was in the 80s in Chicago. And the coolest kids and the coolest thing one could do is come back from summer vacation with the new Michael Jordan shoes, right? Show them off, brag about them. I really believe my son's generation, or the next generation after that, is going to do that more in the digital space. My son's already starting to do that in the digital space. So this kind of leads up to this avatar concept with digital fashion. I think an extension of Nike and those types of brands is to launch the merchandise into a virtual world secured by the blockchain as NFTs. So I think in 1 to 3 years, Nike will have a huge NFT shoe business within the virtual world that will be more popular at least in terms of bragging rights than the actual physical world.
And I think what's really cool what Nike's doing is that you as a sneakerhead could design your own shoe online, create an NFT of it. And then to what you alluded to before, you could breed or merge NFTs together or burn NFTs. So you get really creative of what they can actually do.
Exactly.
Steph, you kind of talked on this earlier as well, as like cryptography and security is going to be critical. So if you are doing something like a Ready Player One scenario, quantum computing is going to be very essential to that type of experience.
Yeah, and the entire blockchain is not secure against quantum attack. So there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that this goes forward smoothly, right? Because you don't want this entire edifice, as we've been describing, to be rocked at the fundamental level. And that's true for the financial, it's not just specific to blockchain, it's true for the financial sector and the rest. But it's also about how we discover drugs. We've seen how well in silico, how people have simulated drugs and how quickly that moved forward over the past year. And there are lots of things where, that was within the realm of what could be simulated with our tools right now. But there's so many other things that have left to be done, right? Like, how do we get better batteries so that we can actually go and think about climate change seriously? There's a lot of things that we need to think about and invest time in now, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, and staying regional, there's a company in Seattle called Dragon Chain. They just put out a white paper about blockchain and quantum and how to leverage both technologies for cryptography and security. Andrew, any examples, again, outside of real world where you're like, wow, that's a great example of how AR, VR can be integrated into a business organization?
Well, I think you don't have to go much farther from real world to one of our great partners, Microsoft, who we work very closely with on these kinds of partnered solutions. And they've recently introduced this idea of Microsoft Mesh, right, where it allows you to have these VR experiences literally on any device, anywhere in mixed reality. So you've gone to this solution now that I think is this, and we've all been alluding to it here a bit, of this merging of virtual worlds and actual world, right? Where you've got data representations, whether that happens to be, a virtual plant that we've now designed, or we're thinking of a model that's in space for that, working and translating that to simulations in that space, to even planning how you use physical space with these new mesh planning. So I think it's, I think Microsoft's work in mesh and similar products like that outside the region are helping us figure out as human beings how to interact and I think that what for many people is this abstract idea of this incredible quantum computing capability that changes all of our fundamental understandings. It's really beyond human linear thinking to explain what happens at that level of computational speed to what humans experience in the real world, and having tools that allow us to be able to then take advantage of them. And so in some ways, I think that's the real magic of this space, is finding ways to take this almost unapproachable technology and bring it down to a human scale where people can do something with it. And that's what I think is super exciting about some of the work that's happening in this space, and why it's not just the physics. I think I love Stephanie's example. She started off with the commercialization of physics, right? As a physicist, I love this idea of starting with thermodynamics and creating refrigeration, and who could have imagined, right? What we'd be doing today with that. So I think that's where we are starting off, is just how do we as human beings find solutions in the software, with this hardware, and in our experience, and certainly something like mesh is, whether it's the ultimate solution, which I don't think it is, but a step in that direction of being able to interact with the virtual world in the real world.
And Steph, I want to bring it back to you on the Cascadia. So quantum associations have been really instrumental for connecting not just the universities, but talent and practitioners. How can we make cross-border collaboration more efficient and more interesting and beneficial to industry?
Yeah, so I think building up the value chain is going to be a really fun ride. I would love a high-speed rail network, just saying. I would love to be able to hop down pretty quick. One of the things that I don't know if is true for everybody, but the remote work thing is great. But the number of times you have the pairwise Teams calls that would have been just faster if everybody was in the same room for just like 5 minutes. There is still some magic that happens in the inventive stage by having everybody like localized, I would say. And so there's various stages of work, and right now we're in the inventive stage. And to Andrew's point, yeah, it's all well and good to have the physics, but it's having the vision for where you want to go with it, what you want to do with it. And we have some projections of it, but really we are going to be imagination limited with these kinds of technologies. And so having really fostering that through lots of pairwise, not just pairwise, but like group interactions, I think will go a long way to accelerate things, as well as just having local value chain things just for, ease of doing business. So yeah, no, more contact, more people, more training. It's all good.
So are there currently industry associations on either side of the border, Washington to Portland? Could there be more connectivity between them?
Yeah, so there's a Northwest Quantum Nexus, and then there's a Quantum Algorithms Institute, and both of them, they work with each other, but they also work they have like natural homes on either side of the fence, as it were. So the Northwest Quantum Nexus does stretch up they're both Cascadia efforts, but they have like a natural home, Northwest Quantum Nexus in Seattle and Quantum Algorithms Institute in Metro Vancouver. And then many of the same organizations that are contributing to both of those associations are in both. So there's a lot of overlap. So it's but of course we're only just getting started, right? That's where we can nucleate and really get going, but more is needed, I think.
And Mickey, over to you on kind of building off of this. So we know over the last year, working from home has benefits, but it's also challenges. Humans do require human interactions, but the reality is we are looking at a hybrid work environment moving forward. So you're currently in California. You've driven expansion in U.S. international companies. Where do you see remote work and virtual employees and work sessions coming into play in the Cascadia region for Cascadia-based companies?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. I think what it did for us, and I think what it can do ongoing, is give companies a wider pool of talent to access. We've thrived during the pandemic. Companies gone from worth a couple $100 million to I think you referenced something that you've read in the news. I can't confirm or deny that. But anyway, we've grown quite a bit over the pandemic, and I would say that when we were limiting to our Vancouver office, it took us a long time to hire, and it took us a long time to find the right people. But once we expanded and decided to, we were forced to go with remote work, we've grown the team and accelerated our business so much. So I think not just the region, but it does apply to your region. It's not everyone in tech. Not everyone in tech now has to live in San Francisco, or they have to live in Seattle. You can access people for your startup or your growing technology across the globe or across the United States. So I think it'll really open things up for companies in smaller regions that don't have a lot of access to local talent.
Yeah, and I think I've traveled around the world, have done talks around the world. No matter what industry you're in, no matter where you are geographically, it is a dogfight for talent. Globally, we just can't produce the talent that we need to advance the companies that are popping up. Andrew, we started to geek out a little bit on Ready Player One and the metaverse and what that looks like. Can you chime in with some future predictions? Where do you see transformational industry connectivity and work from home or remote work, how it's going to be affected by VR, AR moving forward?
Yeah, let's maybe take the time horizon into that 5-year or so time frame. We can still we're maybe pre-deployment of all of this quantum computing activity, and we're in a world we can still sort of predict. This idea of everything being connected, right? You have this huge IoT universe right now. The data is just going to these huge data lakes. They're being worked on by machine learning and AI algorithms, and they're coming back down to interact with control mechanisms for total productive maintenance and those types of things. So what I see is just a connected worker being connected not only and collaborating not only with each other, but they're collaborating with their control systems of the plants or the operations they're part of, right? So just like today we talk to our Siri, or you talk to Cortana, or you talk to your Amazon Alexa to have some sort of limited transactional assistance, you're going to start seeing people do that in natural language with much more complex devices that are managing whole factories or processes. And I think you're going to have in this assisted reality world, a mechanism that you're wearing, a wearable computer that's that you collaborate naturally with voice, that's going to bring that nexus to you. So the line between am I collaborating with a person versus collaborating with a system, I think is going to get blurred over the next 5 years as we work through that. And it's going to feel more natural because today people are already talking to the remote controls to change the channel, right? Back in the day in the 1960s, I was my dad's remote control to get up and change it from channel 1 to channel 3, right? That was the choice. So I think that's what you're going to see most dramatically in 5 years. Beyond that, it just accelerates so rapidly in terms of what people can do with this information. It's hard to predict, but in the short term, I see a lot more of this collaboration with automated systems as well as humans, and making it frictionless.
No, I totally agree. Future is going to be really interesting. We're going to wrap this up with 2 last questions, and we're going to kind of hit everybody on this one. For how do we continue to foster and strengthen this Cascadia region? And is there anything particular or opportunities that our business leaders and governments and universities and education facilities should be taking advantage of or getting involved with here within Cascadia? Andrew, why don't you just go back to you?
Sure. I think first of all, this is absolutely a dual-edged sword about this hybrid work environment and the idea that talent is now not only available in the region, which we've just been talking about, right? How this talent exists here, but Mickey was just alluding to the fact that now we're able to exploit talent anywhere in the world in this hybrid environment. So, do we begin to lose some of the advantages of the magic, as Steph described it, when people come to their face-to-face versus when we can connect elsewhere? So I think we have to be aware that it's actually as big a competitive threat to lose resources available to the region, because now someone who might have been reluctant to move to San Francisco or reluctant to move to New York or reluctant to move to Dusseldorf, now can be an employee of that company and stay where they are, right? And so that talent suddenly becomes unavailable that would have been before local. So governments have to be aware. We've always built these talent pools and these talent models around, hey, come to this region and be part of this solution set, part of the literal economy and knowledge base. I think as much as we can gain from that, we can lose from that. And government needs to be thinking about policies that encourage people to be physically where these things are happening, or they're going to find out that we may have a net talent loss over time, as we will is likely have a net talent gain. So I think government needs to be thinking about that. Steph, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I echo Andrew's points. Those are brilliant. I completely agree. But it's not, there's just like any transition period, there are, opportunities and downsides. Like in the same way, yeah, we can hire people from all over the planet, but now our people can now work for any other company on the planet just as well, right? So how do you have to think about retention in a different way? And that's okay, right? Like that's the playing field that we're playing on. And the best thing we can do is just make sure that we have it with our eyes open and navigate. For the Cascadia region in particular, if we want more interactions, then any kind of friction should be taken down, right? So transportation is only one kind of friction. There was the comment raised in the chat that you want to take maybe make some of the cross-border education, make that an easier, more a less friction prone way. Have training work in an equivalent way. Like there's lots of ideas you can think about in terms of the structure of our interactions that could take friction down if you wanted to boost interactions between this particular region. But one of the nice things that maybe I'll just conclude with is from a Canadian perspective, we have, I'm seeing something that's already kind of happening, and Cascadia could be very well in that same camp, is that we've always been a bunch of like almost distributed nation states, right? There's like the Vancouver hub and the Montreal hub and the Toronto hub. And now finally the country's starting to feel small, right? For the first time in a long time, where like we can all just get on the call all the time and you don't have to worry about coordinating all these different flights. And so it's starting to really, I feel, in some sectors come together, and Cascadia can be the same way. We don't actually, like a rail would be nice, high-speed rail would be great, but at the same time, more than ever, we can actually have a active dialogue. We've now broken those barriers and have active dialogue across the whole region and make the most of it already, right? So there's a bit of a tipping point that's coming about as a silver lining of this whole past couple of years.
And Mickey, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that I think the remote work thing is a little bit overblown. I think as we get further away from the pandemic, things will go more back to normal, where companies will want to centralize around an office or a location. However, I think it does change things a bit, where companies will be more open to remote work and have a better process for remote work. But I do think things will go more closer to what they were than what we think they might be, given the changes that the pandemic has created in work. And that leads me to my point of the best thing that can happen to regions in terms of the growth of technology is successful technology companies that spin up in those regions. It's how Silicon Valley was made. You've seen it in Seattle or the greater Seattle area with Microsoft, Amazon. What happens is that the employees at those companies, the early ones, become the next entrepreneurs, and those entrepreneurs have great DNA that they've learned from those growth companies that they bring out, and they kind of form this ecosystem in that area. We have a long way to go at Dapper Labs, but we hope to be that type of company to expand the Vancouver talent pool and create a more robust Vancouver startup system. One thing I've seen work from a government perspective is, in Finland, the government there really fosters entrepreneurship. The exact details of how it works is I'm not remembering, but I was a very early employee at a Finnish startup that grew to be pretty large. And what the Finnish government does is they match what you would call a seed round or maybe even a Series A round with government funds to kind of double down on the funding of that company to promote entrepreneurship and to help these entrepreneurial endeavors get off the ground. I think that, from a government perspective, is a pretty great program.
Yeah, I love that you ended on that, because Launch Ventures is for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. That's been our mandate, and Governor Gregoire kind of alluded to this earlier, where we've got a lot more in common between Vancouver, Seattle, and Portland than Vancouver does with Toronto or Seattle does with New York. And so collectively, we are stronger. We should play to our strengths, leverage each other's strengths, and build ourselves up, but also learn from each other's weaknesses and help each other out so that we as a region can be the dominant force globally for blockchain, quantum, and VR, AR. I found this conversation really riveting. I got to geek out with you guys, so that was rewarding. I want to give the last word to each one of you to give you a chance to throw out your call to action. What can this audience do for you, for your company? Steph, over to you.
Yeah, my number one ask is get involved and get aware, because the last thing we want to do is be collectively be the nucleation of this world-changing technology and then have even our local economy suffer for it, right, during that transition period. I want everybody around here to be prepared and ready and excited about what we are going to unlock. So happy to engage further on any front on that to make that happen.
Mickey, your call to action?
I would say that we built a blockchain specifically for NFTs and smart contract initiatives, and we would love to talk to any government officials, entrepreneurs, or anyone in between that's looking to build blockchain projects that involve NFTs or involve smart contracts, because we feel like Flow, the blockchain that we built, is the best solution.
I agree. I'm building a blockchain company. I've built quite a few, and we're looking at Flow as well. Andrew, your call to action. What can this audience do for you in real world?
Sure. Well, first of all, if anything else, everyone should walk away and say that, technology is not going to be the limiting factor of what we can accomplish together. It's imagination, right? So in that sense of cross-functional things, it's reaching out to each other in the community. If you think you can create value, remove friction, and every time you remove friction, you create value. I'd like to see companies out there who have workers on the edge, out there working with their hands in the environment, and ask themselves the question, how can those folks do their work more productively and more safely if they had access to information or collaboration? And then reach out to RealWare and let us know how we can help. We can put you in touch with, I think, solutions that can drive and create economic leverage across the region, because as we go forward, that sense of economic productivity is critically important for everyone. It's that tide that lifts all boats. So that'd be my call to action is don't limit yourself to how we do it today. Use your imagination, ask what we can do if we were all connected and working smartly.
It's a great place to end it. Thank you, everyone. Greg, over to you.
Well, thanks so much, Ray, and thanks to the panel, specifically to Andrew and to Mickey and to Steph. Ray, I got a chance to geek out myself, and this is fantastic. It reminds me a little bit of if we were all sitting in the 1750s imagining the future of the Industrial Revolution, except that it's happening at such a rapid and exponential pace. And what you've demonstrated is not only the potential opportunity we have in the Pacific Northwest to really shape that fourth industrial revolution, but most importantly, the responsibility we've got, as Steph articulated regularly in the context of just the transformative opportunity, but also risk inherent in quantum and the application of blockchain and AR and some of the other technologies that we're advancing rapidly in this marketplace. Pam, thanks to you for your leadership and Microsoft partnership for bringing us all together today. It was just a fantastic conversation. I could go through and just in my 7 pages of notes, some of the epiphanies I had in the conversation today, but just so much consolidation around the importance of talent and how we support talent, both from an educational perspective and also from an attraction retention perspective going forward. And I think, Mickey, you talked a little bit about the notion of how do we actually, in a hybrid world, retain people, but also create the ecosystems where in situ coming together and that creative moment where you're working together in a room is so important. So take the friction out, I think, as Steph said, both in terms of how we move, but how we move information and how we collaborate together, as Andrew just eloquently summed up at the end. And that's really what Cascadia is all about. How do we build out and connect talent, capital, innovation, and ideas in a way that actually can transform the world for good in a sustainable way moving forward? And some of the blockchain applications through Flow, for example, on verifying the low carbon economy that we aspire to have in the Pacific Northwest and globally, is just a massive opportunity where the world's going to care about supply chain carbon carrying capacity. So in that context, I just want to thank all of you for participating today. Just a couple of quick commercials at the end. On June 23rd, we're partnering with and co-hosting with Canada's Digital Technology Supercluster, which, if you're aware of it, is over 600 firms collaborating in the way that we're doing in Cascadia. And it's companies up and down the Cascadia corridor. They're coming together around our digital future. And they're partnering with the University of Victoria on an ideation workshop on net zero decarbonization challenge. And so the details will be out later today, but you can also get them at connectcascadia.com, our website for the Innovation Corridor. Secondly, as this session was recorded today, so it'll be up on the site, and you'll be able to go back and dig into some of the great commentary we heard today going forward. And as usual, I want to thank my friend and co-chair, Governor Chris Gregoire, for leadership, not just in terms of what we're doing on building out a more sustainable society and economy, but also the work that she's done leading the country around how we're addressing COVID, how we're trying to make sure that it's equitable, and that we're all staying safe going forward. And I know I personally and we in British Columbia have really benefited, Chris, from your leadership as we are through Cascadia. So thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to getting together on our 8th session coming up on June 23rd. And thanks as usual to Cheryl and Kelsey and the team at the Business Council of BC and at Challenge Seattle for putting on a great session today. Enjoy your day, be safe, and enjoy the great Pacific Northwest weather that hopefully attracts the world's talent over and above some of the cool things we heard today. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day.